Now we're moving into the part of creating the visual storyboard. So I'm inside of a course, inside of a week, and I've actually just updated the name of this file here. There's a file that's called Visual Storyboard Template. So if you download this, this will give you the template, the starting point for creating your visual storyboard. So when I download this, it's going to say Visual Storyboard. I think it says even the S19 or something like that for summer. I'm going to open this up. And oh, now PowerPoint's going to yell at me a bunch of times. Okay, so let me close this cell version here. So when you download this file, it actually contains some of the pieces you're going to need. Okay, so when we create our visual storyboard, what we're doing is we're moving from our text-based storyboard over from a script over to something that's visual. Okay, and it's not the final project yet. Okay, it's not a rapid prototype yet. It is literally just a visual version of our storyboard. And what it's designed to do is when you hand this to your developer, okay, so remember, you're not going to be the designer and the developer. You're just going to be the designer for your project, and you're going to be developer for somebody else's project. Okay, so the way this will work is you're going to create your design, you're going to submit that, and then I'll take and redistribute that to another person in class who will be the developer for your project. Okay, so that is probably as close to accurate to real life as possible. Most of the time, a designer works separately, and then may not even be working for that person's contract may have ended before it ever goes to the developer, who then takes and develops it. So they're using your visual storyboards to help them as they develop. Okay. Now I'm doing something that is a little different this year than in other classes, because I'm giving a full template for this. Sometimes I have had students build their own template, but I'm going to use a standard template because this is what happens when you work for a company. They'll say, okay, if you're going to work for our projects, this is the template you need to use. Okay, so you can copy this template. You can use the exact same elements with it. That's perfectly fine. I'm expecting everyone, actually, I take that back. I'm expecting everyone to use this template. So when I get your project back, it'll actually, all the structure will be there. It'll just be your items, not mine. Okay. So the first part that we have here when we go at our visual storyboard is that we're going to start to migrate the stuff from our text-based storyboard or script over to our visual storyboard. I'm just going to grab an example here. I know that I downloaded one. Here we go. So I got Christina's that I'm working with. And so Christina's got most of her items in here. She still needs to add some images with it, but I'm just going to use this as my quick example. All right, so right now, one of the first things we need to do is we need to tell the learner, oh, come on. We're going to tell the learner what this screen is about. And the welcome screen is the first screen the learner is going to see. So we want to make this eye-catching. We want to make sure the text we use is inviting. We want the learner to be motivated to go through our instruction. So we want to make sure that when we write anything or compose any message in here, that it's very appetizing. Okay, and appetizing meant in really the real pun that I was using it as. Okay, so we want to make sure we do a couple things. We want to make sure that the welcome text we write here is appealing to the learner and still includes our performance outcomes. So it might be something to like, welcome to making a tasty and quick dish of, I don't remember what this one's about, dish of fruit mealy crepe. Okay, so I'm going to put that inside of here, dish of fruit mealy crepe. Okay, so, and then I'm going to put in here a little bit of other information. The second part of this is actually what is the performance outcome. You can copy and paste this straight from your performance outcome. Okay, so by the end of this, okay, so you can paste that text right into here. So what we have at this point, and that's why it said welcome message with integration of performance outcomes. So here I'm going to literally take the performance outcome statement, paste it right in there. I'm going to keep the text. Okay, so now I actually have got my welcome statement. It tells them what they're going to do and then also what's going to be expected of them. We're also going to take and update our little heading text. Every screen for user orientation needs to have some sort of heading text associated with. So this is the welcome screen. So I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to say, welcome to Making Tasty. Welcome to Making Great. Now, one of the things that I know is that some of these titles may be a little bit long, so I might have to tweak them a little bit. Right now, the goal is to get the information in here first, and then we'll go from there. So it's actually welcome to Making Fruits. Okay, really great. All right, so we actually, at this point, like I said, what we're doing is I gave you this template because this is, like I said, many companies will do this. They'll have a standardized template they'll use. And so you're putting in your heading. Okay, you're putting your body text. We need to put in there some directions, and we're going to talk more about directions in a future class. But directions about what is the learner supposed to do. The learner should click on the button, right? So click on the blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to just put in there button to get started. So now what you need to do is, instead of my little line that I put in there, you need to put in there a name for or a label in this button. What would you want the user to click on? What would you put on the button as the label so that the learner knows what to do? Maybe it is, let's start cooking. Okay, or something else. Okay, and so that's the text that you would actually put in here as part of the directions. The next part down here is who is designing the storyboard? You. Okay, so you got to make sure that you put your name in there. If you don't have your name in there, and I think I've said this before, pretty sure I've said this before in class, if you do not put your name on your work, I don't know who turned it in. Okay, so if you do the work, take the credit. If you turn in a visual storyboard when they're submitted and it does not have your name in there, you get a 0 for the project. And the reason why, like I said, I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm trying to be accurate, okay? Because the idea is you need to take credit for your work, and that is something straightforward in order for you to add, okay? Now, this is the visual side of our screen. Okay, you'll notice I also have an image on here, so whatever the image would be that I would put on my welcome screen. Sometimes it's a picture of the finished product. Sometimes it's, oh, I think I turned my volume way down. Sometimes it's the finished project. Sometimes it's, a display of it. Sometimes it can be any number of things. But you have to think about what would you want to put on that screen to make it very welcoming for the learner. Okay, remember our learner is only 8 years old, so we want to make sure that we do something. You can't show a bar because that's not going to work because the 8-year-old should not be in a bar. So you want to be conscious of what this image is. Okay. So we have got our image number 1. Down here at the bottom, this little area below, okay, which I don't know if anybody's ever used, which is usually the presenter notes. We actually use this for something called programming notes. And the programming notes actually describes to the developer what should happen on the screen as far as programming. When the developer gets this screen, they're going to look at these programming notes first because that's going to guide what they do for the programming of your prototype. Okay, so the very first thing we have here is actually, it says screen number. Every single screen inside of your visual storyboards needs to have a screen number. Okay, and the screen number is going to be a little bit different depending on what section you're in. Okay, so if it's the welcome screen, it should have the screen number welcome. Okay, not number 1, not number 2, not anything else. It should say welcome. I actually am going to look at, when I'm evaluating your storyboards, I'm actually looking for you actually having screen number welcome. If you have anything else, intro, anything like that on your welcome screen, then you lose points for it, because the fact is, for our company, the first screen needs to be called welcome. Okay, that way the developer knows, oh, wait a second, this is the first screen of the program. If you call it something else, they don't know necessarily it's the first screen of the program. Okay, so that's the part of the welcome. The next part is about screen design. We're not worried about at this point. Okay, but down here below where we have graphics, every time that you reference an image in your visual storyboard, in your text-based storyboard, it should be included down here. So it should be image number 1 and then the description of that image. And this can be copied right straight from your text-based storyboard. That's the reason why we're spending so much time in the text-based storyboard, is because you're literally building all of the elements that you need here for your visual storyboard, okay? And so you're going to put a description of that image, and the image number needs to be different for every screen. So if I'm on if I'm on my welcome screen and I go to another screen, if I have an image in here, okay, which there could be a shape, just a regular rectangular shape. Okay, notice I'm only using black and white. Now this is blue, but I'm going to change this right away to be, fill color should be no fill, and that the line around it should be black. So it should be black. Okay. So there is no color in your visual storyboards, none whatsoever. I don't want to see a picture. You actually lose points if, when I get your visual storyboard, if it's got photos in the actual screens, then you actually lose points for that, because that is not what occurs inside of our visual storyboards. Okay. Now all that does go inside of here is that you can click on this, and I'm using a Mac, so I can just control click, and then I'm going to take and edit the text. And so now this one is going to be image number 2. Oops, it's actually, come on. Why did you take and make that bigger? I'll make this black. Black. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is image number 2. So when I'm going and building my programming notes, I need to make sure that this says image number 2 here. All right. So each time you use an image, if it's a unique image, meaning it's not being referenced someplace else, you give it an image number. Okay, if you've got 3 images on this screen, so if I've got this image here and I've got this image over here, maybe down below it or whatever, if I take and use 2 of them in my programming, in my description, I have 2, then you need to have, image number 3, and you actually need to have down here at the bottom, image number 1 or 2, and then image number 3. So everything that is in your text-based storyboard needs to be transferred over to your visual storyboard. Okay. Now you'll notice that I've already got on here buttons. Okay. So you don't have to worry about adding buttons to it. I've already done that because we're using the company template. All right. But I did put in there, like for this example here, I have a learner analysis. Okay. So actually for this example, we want to make it so that the screen number is not one of the numbers. It is actually just called learner analysis. And I run words together because spaces in many programming can affect it. So I put learner analysis.